The whips have agreed that item 20, the motion on the future vision of the Council, will be considered next. So I now call on Councillor Govinda to move and Councillor Ellis to second the motion in their names.
Mr. Mayor, I formally second.
I've agreed to request from Councillor Mrs. Cooper that she be allowed to speak somewhere between 7 and 10 minutes. Preferably the shorter version.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've actually just been scribbling out some paragraphs when I saw I only had 7 minutes, so it'd probably be only about 8. But of course, it is. But, you know, tonight we're discussing something which is wonderful for our borough. So I'm delighted to be supporting this motion. Housing has always been one of those key issues which has defined Tory Wandsworth since we defeated Labour in 1978. The Labour Party's record on housing in Wandsworth is appalling. They demolished terrace houses and destroyed local communities in their desire to change the politics of this borough. Remember Herbert Morrison's words, Herbert Morrison, of course, being Peter Mandelson's grandfather, words to Sir Hugh Linstead, "I will build you out of Putney, Hugh," and that is what he did. And after creating a series of large, soulless council estates, they then did not have the competence to manage them properly. I remember all the boarded-up properties which we inherited from the Labour Party, properties which were bought solely because of ideology, without any thought of value for money. I remember well a property in West Hill, which was occupied by one family who'd been moved there from Battersea, and even at that time, I remember thinking that we could have housed 3 families. We could have bought 3 properties in Battersea for the money that Labour had spent on this one home, thereby housing 3 families. And that is when I started to get involved with my husband. In the 1980s, our challenge was to increase owner occupation in the borough. We enthusiastically supported right to buy, but because of the makeup of those Labour-created council estates, we went much further. We declared estates across the borough as sales areas and made owning your own home but not just a dream, but a reality for tens of thousands of Wandsworth residents. And here I should pay tribute to Peter Bingle, because he was chairman of that housing committee at the time, and it was Peter's vision. The estates were transformed. Just look at the Dover House estate in my own ward. We have proven over the past 37 years that we're able to manage our properties, rented and leasehold, at a much higher standard of care and efficiency than Labour ever could. And one of our proudest moments was when Tory Wandsworth became one of the first boroughs in the country to reach the decent home standard. The time has now come, however, to accept that there are some problems which cannot simply be managed. A much more radical approach is required. Owner occupation was the first great housing revolution in Wandsworth. Estate regeneration to deliver 18,000 new homes over the next 10 years is the second. The leader of the council set out ambitious and radical plans, not just to improve some of our most challenging estates, but to totally transform the lives of local residents and to recreate the communities which Labour destroyed so many years ago. This is the most exciting regeneration project in Wandsworth since the Donington in the 1980s. There's been some pathetic politicking by the Labour Party in Battersea, but I hope that we can now all unite and support the Council's ambition for York Road, Winstanley and the Alton Estates. The first step has already been taken by the Housing and Regeneration OSC, which recently and unanimously endorsed the Wandsworth Housing Offer Deliver Strategy, the WHO. It is rare that there is such consensus over what is an ambitious and radical delivery strategy. I have the pleasure and privilege of chairing this committee and can say to you all this evening that the wholehearted commitment of my party, the Conservative Party, to work for the best interests of all Wandsworth residents is captured in this strategy. We will provide 18,000 new homes over the next 10 years. 5,000 of these homes will be targeted for local residents. This is over a 40% increase on our previous previous delivery targets. This is a strategy built on firm foundations, not hot air. And who will this help? Next year, we will see delivered 230 shared ownership homes. This will double the number of low-cost home ownership homes delivered this year. Homes targeted to low to middle-income households, the sons and daughters of Wandsworth residents, that's who. 2015 will also see the opening of a brand new extra care housing scheme for the frail elderly. A scheme that the council has invested £1 million in to provide the best possible housing, support and care environment for the borough's frail elderly. That's who. You get the idea? The council will also bring forward and see the development of 20 homes for people with learning disabilities on 2 sites, which the council is utilising. Homes built to the highest accessibility standards for the more vulnerable residents of the borough. That's who? 2015 will also see start on site the ambitious council self-build programme of low-cost rented housing. 150 homes in the pipeline, a target to develop 200 council rent homes over the next 5 years. 50 starts on sites in 2015. Homes for low-income working households, council tenants wanting to downsize, and households in urgent need of housing. That's who. This is a strategy that intends to positively affect the lives of the many and not just the few. An approach to housing delivery that is broad in its scope and recognise that resourcefulness and financial competence can be combined to improve residents' housing and lives. This strategy is already supported by estate regeneration initiatives at Winstanley and York Road and the Alton that will provide thousands of new and affordable homes at the highest quality in rejuvenated neighbourhoods that will be connected to and part of the improvements happening around them. Sorry. And close to my heart, it contains mobility initiatives that will help our council tenants continue to buy their own homes with funding made available to support 50 home purchases per year, get into work through continuing support for the Housing into Work initiative and training, and employment programmes linked to estate and area regeneration initiatives, and downsize where they choose to do so. A new Moves and Mobility team in place by April, fully funded to give that helping hand and to achieve over 100 moves a year. But the strategy doesn't stop there. It looks beyond the next few years and to the horizon. It will raise resident expectations and change lives. This, however, will require vision, adaptation and flexibility, which will be provided through a funded environmental improvements programme for our estates, and I would expect further considerations of estate improvement programmes to ensure that we provide local council residents with housing fit for the 21st century, environmentally efficient, adaptable, modern. The first structured private rent scheme will be provided in the borough in the next 3 years. That will be managed by London and Quadrant and targeted to the young and mobile working population so predominant in the borough. And the first pocket homes purchase scheme will be developed not 5 minutes from here, providing 70% of the homes sold on affordable terms. I can only commend the leader of the council, Councillor Gavindia, and the Cabinet Member for Housing, Councillor Ellis, for their vision and ambition. And I would also like to thank our officers for all their hard work. It's all there in swerving commitment to improve the lives of Wandsworth's existing and future residents that we all must get behind as both councillors and residents ourselves. Wandsworth Council building on and from firm foundations, a council leading the way, increasing housing options and supply for the benefit of the many and to the benefit of the London and the local economy. I expect everyone in this chamber to support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas.
Mr. Mayor, Let me start with some statements from the new housing strategy on which the motion before us tonight is based. It's a significant document that contains a number of remarkably candid statements. Here's a few. The Council's current housing policies are not delivering sufficient numbers of lower-cost homes to meet the demand from working and vulnerable households. The quality of private rented accommodation is variable and can often be poor, rent high, and rental periods short. Low to middle income households are being priced out of the borough. I must say I was perplexed with this last one to note that the upper income bracket for lower to middle income households was pitched at 80,000, which doesn't make much sense to me. Maybe it makes some sense to members of the Tory party over there. I think we should welcome the long overdue recognition by this administration in that strategy of the failure of its housing policies. But at the same time, we have to ask, what faith can the residents of Wandsworth now have that their housing aspirations will be met? And I believe that they've got good cause to be concerned for two reasons. First of these reasons is about the extent to which this is a housing strategy that will deliver equally to people's aspirations, whatever their housing situation within the borough. According to the new housing strategy, and I quote it again, social housing is no longer a tenure perceived as meeting the needs of low-income working households, or something for them to aspire to. And the strategy calls for social housing to be used to provide a broader range of needs. I've never heard so much rubbish. Yes, of course, there's not enough social housing. And of course, that results in a system in which people feel that the odds of getting housing are stacked against them, with many more losers than winners. In this sense, it is indeed true that we are failing to meet people's housing aspirations. But it's quite wrong to suggest that the allocation of social housing to those with the fewest housing options and the least financial means is somehow at odds with a culture of aspiration. The other day, a woman came to see me in my counsellor's surgery. She'd been given notice by her landlord on the property where she and her family had lived for the past 9 years. She had children at school locally, one doing his GCSEs, and she was a local volunteer. Because she couldn't find anywhere to move to that was affordable, she faced eviction and being rehoused by the council miles out of the borough and away from the community of which she was part. Aren't that woman's housing aspirations every bit as legitimate as anyone else's? She was very clear about what she wanted, an offer of an affordable social home. Sure, for her, it wasn't actually about improving her lot or climbing onto the home ownership ladder, but simply about securing herself a decent place to live that could enable her to remain part of her local community. It should be precisely people such as this, who are victims of circumstance and an unregulated market, that we should be working hardest to help. Instead, this housing strategy seems to be saying to those who have fallen on hard times, those in the most precarious situation, sorry, there's no place for you here anymore. The second cause for concern, even more important than the first, is about delivery. People are quite rightly fed up with promises being made to them only for things to stay the same, or in the case of Wandsworth's housing crisis, to get worse. I personally am starting to lose track of the number of housing strategy relaunches we've had in Wandsworth in the last few years. As far back as 2011, we had proposals for a new estate standard as part of the Wandsworth Challenge. Hard on the heels of this, we had the proposals put forward by the leader to revitalise home ownership and create new ladders of opportunity. Anyone remember those? What has happened since then? A massive increase in homelessness. A complete failure to replace the homes sold under the right to buy. Only this week, the Evening Standard reported that private renters in Wandsworth are now spending nearly half their gross income on rent. I'm afraid I just can't agree with this motion that this council should be proud of its record on affordable housing delivery over the last 10 years. I think we should be sorry that we haven't done much better. Mr. Mayor, there are many flaws in the Tories' new housing strategy, but there are some good things in it too, which could make a positive difference. If we could actually be confident that these would be backed up with decisive action, this motion might just be worth supporting. But based both on past form and the lack of assurance around the proposed delivery arrangements, it's just not possible to be. Without this, the motion will remain what the residents of this borough, I'm sorry to say, have grown used to. Fine words, empty promises, and unfulfilled aspirations.
Councillor Hanson, a maiden speech.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over many years, I've worked in and around the Queenstown housing estates of Queenstown with single parents and young people and those at risk of getting into gangs. I believe in waking up the leadership within the people. The Evening Standard dubbed me the Queen of the Doddington. So, before I begin, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the residents of Queenstown who voted for me and gave me the privilege of representing them. Some people might say the Queen is taking her seat. I'm also grateful to Wandsworth Conservatives who have realised my passion and commitment for local people and have nurtured and supported me. They have encouraged me to be confident and gain a voice. I'm thankful for all your support that you, my colleagues, have given me since I've become a member of this council. Thank you. In our borough, housing will continue to be a priority. Around Queenstown, Winstanley and other areas of the borough, my party is bringing forward a major policy of regeneration and housing. What we know is the poorest members of our society always suffer from the greatest health needs. We know also that people from the BM communities are overrepresented in all kinds of health service, not at least mental health service. My party is committed to making a difference to all these areas, and it is an effort that I am proud to be a part of. As someone who has lived on a housing estate most of my life, I know the life challenging and opportunity to move to a better home can be. Our party has pledged tenants will, if they wish, to be close as possible to their current homes and communities. Keeping local people local is and will be the cause that we will continue to champion. In my years of campaigning, I have come to realise that challenges which we face as a society is not a matter of party politics, but about what works and what doesn't. Some parts of society systems do not work as well as they could. I have joined this party because I know that it is committed to building a society that works for all people, regardless of background, their race or their colour. And my election as a Conservative Party councillor is a prime example. I have been disappointed at the constant sniping, at the undermining of things that I know will work for our communities. It is an ugly side of politics, and I will not be a part of it. When I joined this council, some members of the opposite were wondering why I was here, on this side of the chamber. Why I'm here is to make things happen, to create and enable change, to ensure that the poorest members of our communities have some opportunities and access every other person has, to support policies that don't trap people into poverty, but create pathways for them to escape it. I am not so naive as to think this will be easy. We are placed on this earth to do We are placed on this earth to do We are placed on this earth not to do small things, but to do great things. And I think that we have the opportunity to do these great things. And in many ways, we already are. We are the brightest borough. And I look forward with great hope and great faith that in the months and years ahead, I will be able to make a contribution to the people of Queenstown and our borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Well done. Councillor Sweet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, cities are places of opportunity and aspiration where people come to make it. That's as true now as it was for the Victorian migrants to Battersea's industrial waterfront. We mustn't forget that this ambition and hope are what drive people to move to cities, and they're the reason that there's such great demand for housing in Wandsworth. It must be our job to enable supply to meet that demand, and I mean for all our residents, be they social renters, private renters, or aspiring homeowners. A stable home is a prerequisite for a stable, happy life. We're so proud in Wandsworth to have achieved decent home standard across all of our 17,000 homes for social rent. There's immense pressure on our stock, and we're innovating to maximise its use. Last week in Queenstown, I met a lady occupying just one room of her 4-bedroom council home. She wanted to move to live nearer her mother, but she was overwhelmed. Well, our moves and mobility schemes, like the improved house purchase grant and landlord subsidies, will help 600 people like her to move if they want to, and that will free up more space for others that need it. As our successful Housing into Work programme shows, a home can kick-start a prosperous life. We will keep regenerating our social housing because it's the bedrock of our aspiration agenda. I always assumed that the opposition agreed with us on that, but the way they're blocking new low-rent housing on the sports centre site, which is crucial for the Winstanley regeneration, suggests that they can't see why homes support aspiration. Regarding the private rented sector, the increase in Wandsworth house prices is part of a national situation, and I'm pleased that the Mayor of London and Prime Minister are addressing it. But in the meantime, we must accept that 1/4 of our residents in Wandsworth rent. And we've listened to the 9 in 10 of those residents that want the council to play a part. I want us to investigate local licensing and support a professional, consolidated private rented sector. It's so exciting to be pioneering that here in Wandsworth on the Christie's site in Nine Elms, and I hope eventually through the creation of a Wandsworth housing company. Finally, homeowners and first-time buyers. Most of our private renters still aspire to own their own home. We must do our bit to bring prices under control by boosting supply. We're building 18,000 homes across all tenures, 5,000 of which are for local people. That's partly through our skillful use of master plans and housing zone and opportunity area status, which is bringing so much brownfield and council-owned land to the development stage. But we must match that with a permissive planning regime. Wandsworth's special charm is its balance of density and green space, but we must build tall where high density is appropriate. Why do opposition councillors on housing and planning committees so consistently vote against large developments? They say they're against private rent increases and house price rises, and yet they block the solution, the supply of new properties. 87% of Londoners believe more housing is needed. What's more, parts of our borough are prime, central London, Zone 1 land, and if we want developers to provide affordable housing, and we do, then our planning regime needs to allow their schemes to be viable. Every affordable home adds £100,000 and 1.5 jobs to the local economy. For that, a well-designed, carefully positioned large building must be worth giving up a sliver of London sky. In sum, Mr. Mayor, housing is the issue of this generation, and we mustn't forget it. By boosting supply across tenures, we're continuing Wandsworth's proud heritage as a place of opportunity and aspiration.
It's not a point of order.
That's not a point of order, and the use of social media is permitted. It is permitted. Councillor Hogg, would you like to make your contribution? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The housing market is broken, and this council doesn't have a plan to fix it. The housing crisis is hurting families, and it's hurting renters. And this council can't solve the crisis. It puts property developers ahead of the public interest, and it's turned its back on people on regular incomes. Wandsworth is a great place to raise a family, but it's become a tough place to raise a family. Rent on a 4-bedroom house went up 32% in the last 2 years. The Sunday Times reported that in Wandsworth, the gap between a 3-bedroom property and a 4-bedroom property is now £419,000. This is the largest anywhere in the country. And of course, childcare costs of more than £10,000 per year per child. I don't know of a single local family who thinks they'll get to live in the new Nine Elms developments or many of the other new developments. Just 3 of the first 2,400 flats to be built at the Battersea Power Station site are affordable family-sized homes. Your motion is okay. I mean, your housing strategy is okay, but this is a crisis. Where is the passage on homelessness? More than 1,000 local families will spend tonight in Wandsworth temporary accommodation, homeless, facing school runs that take up to 2 hours, fights within families sharing one cramped room, symptoms of depression. Where's the section on improving life for private renters? I mean, the housing market is broken, and it's not time for half measures. I mean, this government asks letting agents to advertise the fees they charge renters. Labour will scrap those fees. It's positive that the leader has seen the benefit of longer-term tenancies with stable rents for new build properties. Labour says all of Britain's 9 million renters should have the benefit of the option of a 3-year tenancy with capped rent increases over that period. Where do you discuss the council's unseemly closeness with property developers and their lobbyists? The council has confused the business interest with the public interest repeatedly. Developers build expensive flats for overseas investors. They have no incentive, they have no interest in building housing for your children. These are the sort of people who only see land to build on where we see a school, a library, a park, or a local sports centre. And the council is bound up with these people. Wandsworth Council is a property empire with a sideline in local government. And Wandsworth has turned its back on social housing. I mean, recently there was controversy when a developer marketed a new property, a new block to Far Eastern investors, promising zero social housing. That's outrageous, right? But here are some more buildings that will contain zero social housing. So there's Frank Gary's 700-unit block at Battersea Power Station, the 19-storey block at Battersea Park East, 26-storey building to replace Welbeck House, the 37-storey tower on the Ram Brewery site. Thousands of homes, zero social housing. Wandsworth's turning its back just at the time it's needed the most. And the Winstanley regeneration area itself will go from about 80% social housing to around 30%. The housing market is broken. It is broken nationally, and it's been broken going back over decades. But the Tory response has been pathetic. The flagship Help to Buy scheme helped 0 people in Tooting buy a home. Multi-billion-pound flagship scheme. I mean, to be fair, I did see a press release from the council yesterday saying that 400 new affordable homes had been 4 new affordable homes have been completed in Tooting recently. Slightly different thing. People who work hard and play by the rules are being forced to leave the area. House prices went up 20% last year in Balham. That's an average of £150,000, which is all very well if you own. It's not so great if you're renting and saving to own. Too late, you've woken up to the fact that policemen and nurses and actors and academics, office administrators and handymen can't live here, and neither can their children. The housing market is broken, and this council doesn't have a plan to fix it. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes?
Councillor Hogg just said handymen can't afford to live in Wandsworth. I'm a handyman and I can live in Wandsworth, thank you very much. cliches, Labour cliches about Tory policy isn't always the case.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I start by congratulating Councillor Hanson on her maiden speech. Delivered with some passion, if I may say so, and can I, Mr. Mayor, say that Councillor Hanson echoes the feelings that I had 30-odd years ago when I joined this council. I had the same kind of question being asked of me, why are you there, not there? And it is a great fallacy for people to think that your colour of your skin should define your politics. But what Councillor Hanson also shared with us was her life on a council estate, lived to the full, but also with an aspiration to do better. And what this motion is about the aspiration to do better. It is not about saying you should not be on the council estate. If you need to, you can. But it is about making it possible for those who want to aspire to get out of there and do better for themselves and their families, that we have a way forward. I think housing is one of those kind of issues where people are divided into being either backward-looking or forward-looking. Backward-looking people on housing want to turn the clock back to the world of pre-1980s when there was no right to buy. They'd like to sort of forget the freedom and the freedom that right to buy gave so many people on our estates to acquire a stake in the community, to acquire equity, to get mobility and move around and move about. And they see a world entirely through that prism of saying either there should be more social housing or there should be less private housing. And then there are forward-looking people who sort of see estate modernizations as opportunities to rebuild, refresh, renew, and replenish the housing stock, to change stock mixtures between social and other forms of tenures, to introduce and experiment with new tenures, whether it's equity share or shared ownership, to give people opportunity to downsize from flats that are, or houses that are not fully occupying, to open up opportunities for families to have a share in a good home. Now, I'm sure that the party opposite has got backward-looking people and forward-looking people. This evening, I don't think I heard much about from those who might be looking forward. But I'm sure they're there because they voted for this paper when it came to committee. So presumably, there are some who do look forward, although I'm told that they voted for parts of it, and then in a subsequent paper, they voted against parts of it. So maybe confusion reigns supreme there. And Councillor Cooper sort of clearly did look backward at what housing was like and learned from it and say it is right that we should learn from it and move forward. Councillor Sweet looked at the whole reason why urban living is always different. Over the centuries, it is places, urban areas, is where people make their fortunes and come to live their dreams and hopes. And housing is a great part of it. It's not always the palaces they start living in, but they aspire to live in those. And our job in public sector is to make sure that people's aspirations can be met. In Wandsworth, we are setting the agenda on housing. I know what Councillor Hogg says, but I know privately he thinks this is a good way forward. There are lots of good things in there, but of course he must make the stance. After all, there's an election in a few weeks' time, and he can hardly be seen to be supporting a Tory initiative. I understand that. I mean, that's what politics about. But this is a strategy to build 18,000 new homes. You would have thought that opposition clamoring for more homes would have said, that's not a bad thing to do. We'll support you on that. But not really. Our strategy is not only to build more homes, but also to build better homes. It's just estate regeneration programs, which I mentioned in the question and answer session, is an example of that. Self-built on Patmore is another example of actually building homes where people want them and of making opportunities for people off Patmore to live in Patmore if they want to do so. Private rental product at various price points which will address the needs of the changing housing needs in the borough. We're putting people with the Wandsworth connection at the heart of our housing policy, so the people who have made Wandsworth their home have the satisfaction of living and growing up in Wandsworth. And above all, we are also tackling inequality, whether it is of in education outcome, health outcomes, and so on. Mr. Mayor, it's party on this side that is setting the agenda on housing. It is party on this side that is setting the agenda on aspiration. The party on the other side needs to ask themselves whether they are for improving lots of our residents, or are they just going to sit there and look for short-term political advantages only.
The motion now before the Council is that proposed by Councillor Govindia and seconded by Councillor Ellis, as set out in item 20 of the agenda concerning the future vision of the Council. So please indicate by a show of hands those for the motion. And those against. The motion is carried by 34 to 17.